Julian Sayin, Jeremiah Smith, and the Ohio State Buckeyes head up north to take on the team up north, the Michigan Wolverines, with their true freshman phenom quarterback, Bryce Underwood. This is the best rivalry in all of sports. It's called The Game for a reason. What immediately has to be pointed out is, of course, the rushing yards. Everybody talks about it, and it is a key point in this game. The Michigan Wolverines have dominated on the ground the last 4 years, and that has been a key fundamental part of why they have beaten the Ohio State Buckeyes. Despite last year being a 22-point underdog on the road against one of the best teams in the country, the eventual national champion, best team in college football, they beat them because of the domination up front in the interior of the defensive line. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham became first-round picks. They were able to limit Travion Henderson and Quinshad Judkins, second-rounders in the draft, both doing very well in the NFL right now. Why did they have that advantage? And this is going to be a key point in this game because this year, the interior of the offensive line for Ohio State has been the weakest unit of this team. Last year, Donovan Jackson bumped out to left tackle after Josh Simmons got hurt. That meant that left tackle was solidified. He did a very good job. This guy went in the first round of the draft last year. He's starting for the Minnesota Vikings right now. But when he went to left tackle, it made the interior weaker for Ohio State. They've got Vince Sickle at right guard. Look for the middle of that offensive line. How do they perform against Michigan early? If you're an Ohio State fan right now, you're probably saying, to heck with that. I don't care about the rush yards. I want to air the football out. I guarantee you, though, right now, the winner of this game is going to have more yards on the ground. So we're going to talk about the ground game. Michigan, they've had more attempts each of the last 4 years running the football than passing attempts. That's quite obvious. That's been the identity of Michigan for as long as we can remember, as long as I've certainly been alive. But Jordan Marshall, he goes down. Justice Haynes, he goes down. Marshall had 142 yards and 2 touchdowns against Northwestern. Not having him for the rest of the season, obviously very key. He'd been a phenomenal back, so now it's on the legs of Bryson Kudzal. He has to have a very good day, as well as their true freshman quarterback, Bryce Underwood. You know that the carries are going to come. He had 9 carries last week against Northwestern, a rushing touchdown. He will have to find a way to find holes in that Ohio State defense, which there have not been many. You are looking at 2 bona fide first-round talent linebackers in the middle. Sonny Styles, the converted safety to linebacker, he's been one of the best in the country. He would be getting a whole lot more attention if not for his running mate, Arvell Reese. There's talks about right now for him being the first overall pick in the upcoming 2026 NFL draft. That's how dynamic he is as an athlete, coming up to the line, getting after the quarterback on third down. Matt Patricia has these versatile linebackers that go sideline to sideline. These are both sub 4'5" guys at linebacker, 6'4", 240 plus pounds, and they can fly. So Bryce Underwood has not seen that type of athleticism on the other side of the field in his career. I know that the Michigan linebackers are very good. This is a very talented defensive unit for the Wolverines. It wouldn't be Michigan if they didn't have good defensive football, but it is different for the speed that Ohio State has. And of course, haven't even mentioned who might just be the best defender in the country in Caleb Downs. You're talking about one of those guys that can move across the entire field, line up in the slot, get after the quarterback rushing. He lives in the backfield, does not miss tackles. The addition of him last year, they don't win the national championship without Caleb Downs in the back end of that defense. Michigan has their hands full without their top 2 backs that had been phenomenal this season. This is really a tall task. I would argue just as hard, if not tougher, than when it was last year. Why is that? Because the Buckeyes have a Heisman contender at quarterback in Julian Sayin, and he's even maybe possibly doing something that it's a step right in line with that, and that's setting the single completion percentage mark for completion percentage. He's right there. He's right at that 80% mark with a good performance in this game. He could very well set the regular season record. You're talking about guys like Joe Burrow, that he has completed a higher rate of his passes than. With these wide receivers, Jeremiah Smith, could very well be the first overall pick in the 2027 draft. Carnell Tate over there. We're going to be talking a whole lot about them and the matchup of them against this Michigan secondary. But right now, that is the key fundamental focus. You look at the run game. How will that be for Michigan? Can they keep them in third and manageable, third and short? It really has to be, because if you get into third and 4 or longer, you look at the statistics, it is abnormal how good the Buckeyes are on third and 4 or longer because of the athletes that they have. If you're Michigan, the fundamental part of this game is chew as much clock as possible. If you pick up a 2-yard gain and it's a completed pass and you're able to run the play clock down to 3 or 4 seconds, it's a good thing. It means that that's 35, 36 less seconds that Ohio State will have the opportunity to possess the football. You want this game to be over in an hour and a half, keeping it on the ground, positive yards, and getting completions. That's another one of the keys here. Obviously, it's success on the early downs for Michigan, but also it's completions. Bryce Underwood has to be completion driven against this Buckeye defense. And if you think about the only weakness that has been shown, it's been the seams, middle part of the field, and quick completions on the perimeter with Davison Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews being very aggressive cornerbacks, get their hands on you, they run with you. The completions, the ball has to be out of Bryce Underwood's hand very quickly. I would imagine that a lot of Michigan fans aren't quite familiar with the interior of this Buckeye defensive line. Do not be fooled because of the loss of Ty Hamilton and Tyleik Williams from a season ago. Both got drafted, and these two players for Ohio State, Caden McDonald and Edric Houston, they have been just as good, and that is not an exaggeration. Them coming in, being starters, first-year full-time starters for this defense, and they have been unbelievable on the interior. Caden McDonald, a lot more of that run stuffer, and Edric Houston, an immovable object. They free up guys like Sonny Styles and guys like Caleb Downs, Arvell, Reese, because of all of the nasty, dirty work that they do in taking on those double teams. And then, of course, on the edges, Caden Curry, 7 sacks on the season, and Kenyatta Jackson, two of the more underrated players in the country, because we talked about how many names. We just talked about 9 guys on this defense so far already against Michigan in this matchup. This is one of the toughest games that Michigan will ever play, I think, overall, honestly, in their history, because of the amount of talent on this Buckeye team. 14 guys drafted a season ago. They're even better this year in this sense of athleticism. You're essentially replacing Cody Simon and Sonny Styles with a better version of Sonny Styles and a more athletic, faster, bigger, stronger version than Cody Simon in Arvell Reese, with more upside getting after the quarterback. So that's to say that Bryce Underwood cannot make mistakes. And if you think about his performance against Northwestern, really good first half. This was probably the best first half game of the season he was playing. Second half comes in and he turns the football over in a couple of key spots. That cannot happen. You can't make those mistakes. Why? Because the Buckeyes do not make those mistakes this year. Julian Sayin just does not turn the football over. If you're a Michigan fan, I know what you're saying. We beat him the last 4 years, and that's why we're going to beat him again. We got him in our house. I got to be honest with you. When you look at history, it's very important because it's an indicator of what the game will look like, how it goes. But if you've watched the Buckeyes at all this season, I'm sure Michigan, the fans have at consistent opportunities. Maybe only against Texas was the only time. Against Penn State, I'm sure they tuned in for a little bit of that one. They really haven't been in any close games or been in any entertaining games except for the first possession against Penn State, where they come out and they score, hit a bomb to Carnell Tate. It's a 3-point game and a half that turns into a 10-point game within 2 minutes of gameplay in the second half. Against Texas, came down to the final possession. So really, I don't know how well Michigan fans know this Buckeye roster through and through, what they're going up against. Just thinking about that narrative of soft on the interior of the offensive line, that's something that needs to be attacked. If I'm formulating a game plan to go after this Ohio State offense, that's where we'll transition right now. Of course, we'll flip it back to the Buckeye defense versus that Michigan offense. But you have to get pressure on Julian Sayin. He has not been sacked all that much this entire season. I've talked about that being maybe the weakness. Julian Sayin's only been sacked 6 times this season. He's had time to throw the football. He's a better athlete than people give him credit for. You just think about, I think it was a 3rd and 5 against Penn State. He got away from Deni Dennis Sutton. That's either a day 1, day 2 pick in this upcoming draft, and delivers a strike over the middle of the field. Ohio State has run the football well, and they've got a stable of backs. Bo Jackson, the freshman's been good. Isaiah West, he's been very good. Donaldson, he's that bruiser down by the goal line, 3rd and short. You give it to him. He's got 9 rushing touchdowns. And then James Peoples. This is a group of 4 backs that will be rotating and have playing time throughout the entire day. And I know that the narrative into this game is Ohio State take advantage of the presence of Smith and Tate in this one. But I'm going to wager that they wind up finishing this game with more rush attempts than pass attempts, but still can have the efficiency and the dynamic ability of this passing attack without having to throw the football like they did 49 times against the Wolverines in 2021, when that was Harbaugh's first win ever against the Buckeyes. And that was Cade McNamara at quarterback. And why was Michigan able to win that game? Well, they ran the football for 297. The Buckeyes ran it for 64 yards. Incredible numbers to think about in that one. This has been a series that Michigan has been able to control the game from the get-go. You think about the game in 2023, the national champion Wolverines, and we're going to go through history here, and of course, the recent matchups, because that's what's important to this one. We'll go a little bit further back to some of those famous ones, and we'll bounce around a little bit. I think what's great about this matchup is recency, breaking down this season, but also understanding previous matchups, the history of these programs, and fully giving an overall sense of what this game is, and then delivering, the best prediction possible for everybody. And then you can agree or disagree with it when we get to that stage. But you look at what Michigan did in 2023. Well, it was the early interception. Cal McCord's looking for Marvin Harrison Jr., and Will Johnson jumps it. And you thought last year, without Will Johnson on the field, and they also didn't have Colston Loveland on offense, the Buckeyes would really take advantage. But no, it was short underneath. Michigan was playing 2 high safeties, daring Ohio State to run the football. Because remember what we talked about earlier about Michigan and their style. Completions, running the football, it's dropped down to 5 seconds. With the Buckeyes run the football, what does that mean? The clock keeps moving. It keeps moving. And even if they're picking up 4-5 yards, it is going to condense the game overall. So Michigan last year in that game, they were able to control time of possession very well. They won it by over 7 minutes, 33-35 to 26-25, because they were able to almost outrush the Buckeyes by 100 yards in this game. It was by 95, and despite only having 9 completions on the day, they were able to try and run the football, whereas the Buckeyes, they had incompletions. They had 14 overall incompletions on the day, and were not able to take advantage of one-on-ones. There was one drive before the end of the first half, and they attacked, went down the field, and even heard Joel Klatt say, "That's it. That's what I've been expecting throughout this whole half for them to do." And then the second half, you just didn't see that attack the rest of the game. So it was relatively shocking and surprising, I think, for all people involved in that one to see it go down that way. But what did that become? And it became one of the greatest lessons that Ryan Day, that Chip Kelly, that the members of that national champion team for the Buckeyes will ever learn. And that is, when you truly have a weapon that is something that is uncomparable, despite a narrative about maybe being soft, despite being told that you have to win this game a certain way and able to win it. That's just how it's done. You have to run the ball to beat them. They didn't go down with their best. Without Will Johnson on the field, and he should not have fallen that far in the draft. The fact that he fell down that deep into the second round is absurd. He's playing some good football at the Arizona Cardinals. They didn't take shots to Smith on the outside or Emeka Ibuka. Tate, I mean, this wide receiving core, you think about how much talent they had, arguably just as good, if not better, Then this season, of course, with Ibuka and a first rounder playing great football in the conversation to be the rookie of the year on the offensive side of the ball for Tampa Bay with Baker Mayfield, this Buckeye team didn't take advantage of that. And so against Michigan, if I'm the Wolverines, I'm saying I have to force them to do it on the ground. If the Buckeyes run the football 35 times, so be it. I'm going to dare them to do that. And if they beat us doing it that way, they beat us doing it that way, but we will not sit here in the mind of Sherrone Moore. We will not sit here and let the best player in college football in Jeremiah Smith, maybe the best player in college football also in Julian Sayin, beat us. It's going to be Bo Jackson. It's going to be a freshman. It's going to be West. It's going to be one of those running backs marching down the field because we're not going to give him those opportunities. And Ryan Day has to answer that with, I don't care. I will take those shots. One-on-one, it's not going to happen all that often. There's no way that you're going to be seeing a whole lot of one-on-one. It's going to come down to, as safeties over the top, what's Julian Sayin done a whole lot this season? Well, it's underthrow the football a little bit, put more air on it so he doesn't overthrow. It looks like double coverage, but when that safety is over the top and the corner rotates down underneath, a lot of times what looks like double coverage really isn't double coverage. It's one safety over the top, and it turns into a one-on-one once the wide receiver is beyond a 15, 18, 20-yard depth down the field. If a ball is underthrown and with enough air on it, these are 50-50 ball opportunities for Tate and Smith for them to be had, and they need to be taken. I feel like there's a certain narrative for this one that has to be changed, and that is Ryan Day doesn't give a heck. He does not care about what you think, about the way it's supposed to look. It's about a win. And in order to win this game, it comes down to putting your best players in the best position possible. That's what a coach is supposed to do. And immediately, I'm getting excited about this because it is that simple. You put Julian Sayin, one of the most talented quarterbacks. There's a reason he was the #1 quarterback in his class, and Nick Saban wanted. This kid can throw the football, and he's got a quick release, and he's darn accurate with it. Doesn't turn it over. In the Heisman conversation for a reason with this receiving core. It's not just because of the wide receivers, but it certainly hurts. You got to go and use that advantage. But overall, though, what I'm trying to say here and wrap this idea here of the way that the Buckeyes and Brian Hartline now as the offensive coordinator is going to attack Michigan is they can still wind up running the football more times than they have passing attempts. Just because they air it out and take their shots doesn't mean they're going to wind up with more pass attempts than run attempts. And they can still wind up running the football for more yards than Michigan. Why? Because the Wolverines really start backing off then and saying, all right, just take your 6-7 yards to Smith or Tate underneath. We're going to rally, come up and tackle, something that they have done incredibly well the entire season. You think about Zeke Berry, Jair Hill, these guys come up and tackle phenomenally well. And they play off, but they're able to eat up that space, and they're making a tackle for only a 4-yard gain on a player. I think about last year and watching Jair Hill, and I was like, this guy just seemingly looks like there's a lot of space, and he eats it up quickly. And it's the exact same story with him this season. He's an experienced guy back there. He's got that experience of last season behind him, so I think there's that experience. It's almost like the shell shock of going up against a barrage, right, of someone's coming on the attack. Last year, you saw it a little bit briefly of what they're capable of. That's what's coming, though. And I think that Michigan fans are almost hoping. If you're a Michigan fan watching this, you're hoping that the Buckeyes don't utilize it. Because, and what I've said the entire season is, it's not an overly aggressive play call to chuck the ball 35, 40 yards down the field to Smith or to Tate. The ball's just not getting intercepted. Sayin is not throwing picks beyond a football that's been 15 air yards. It's actually been the stuff that's underneath. You think about the pass by the goal line against Purdue. You think about interception he had, I believe, against Grambling earlier in the season. It's been underneath quick stuff and 2 passes deflected earlier in one of the games. So the down the field stuff is essentially as conservative as a run up the middle to try and get 3-4 yards. A pass down the field is literally the same level of conservative nature because of how good these wide receivers are. So you just got to take advantage of that. Let's go back to the defensive side for Ohio State and Michigan now. I think that was pretty emphatic now in what we're talking about and what to somewhat expect a bit more of this season. But in this game, for Michigan to actually get yards on the ground without the explosive nature of Justice Haynes, and man, you look back to the pop he had in the first play of the second half against Oklahoma. It's like this guy's different. This guy can move now. In the game against Nebraska, it hurt them that in the game against USC, and I'm gonna go into why I'm starting to lean and have a bit of confidence overall, and that's turning into a lot of confidence in the Buckeyes in this game because you start looking at some comparable matchups against not a very good USC Trojan defense. Michigan ran the ball for 3.5 yards a carry, and they were not overly efficient. They wound up throwing the football a lot more than you're used to. I mean, they had 26 attempts and 31 carries in that game. The USC Trojans were able to really manage that day. Justice Haynes, I believe, was that the game he got? I want to say that was the game that he got hurt in, and then it was more of a load for Marshall and Wayman Jordan, I believe, might have gotten that game hurt for USC back then. So it takes a heavy toll in that game. But Michigan got out physicaled, and they could not stop Makai Lemon. They couldn't. 9 catches, 93 and a touchdown. That was an advantage. Michigan's offense against USC, Bryce Underwood, again, the entire year, what's been the main struggle? Consistency. Everything in life. It comes down to consistency. It comes down to discipline. Bryce Underwood in that game, missing some throws. It started early. I remember a screener out in the flat. Might have been a 3-and-out the first possession of the game, and just missing open players. Struggling with the changing of the velocity with the football. I'm telling you right now, none of that can happen. This isn't a tight Buckeye team. They're loose. They're free. They won a national championship last year. The head coach did, at least. He's got that monkey off his back. He's got nothing to lose here. People like Dave Portnoy come into this game saying that he's got everything to lose. No, the man's essentially free from that burden. He's got that natty. He can coach his butt off in any way that he wants. And Buckeye fans, despite the lunatic fringe called by Kirk Herbstreit, the expectation is to win this game, and it makes sense because they, as a matchup, as it stands on defense, going up against this young Wolverine team overall, specifically on offense, with what they're working with, it is a true mismatch in the sense of caliber of what the Buckeyes have on defense versus this Michigan offense. So you look at Bryce Underwood and what his opportunities will be. Well, the legs, and how do you utilize an effective sense of your ability to run the football as a mobile quarterback? Well, look, it's getting those easy completions. It's showing Ohio State early in this game that you are willing to run the football and that they have to allocate guys towards that. I immediately, though, am thinking to the Washington game where Ohio State played Washington, Damon Williams. And Damon Williams had no room the entire day. Arvell Reese put a teach tape together of how you defend a mobile quarterback. And you go back and watch some of the film and the highlights of that game, and you're like, I don't even see a single play. Where is there a single play where Damon Williams is able to break off and have a nice scramble? He got sacked a couple of times in that game, but finished with negative 28 yards on 13 carries. The sack yardage does go in account with that. That's relatively dumb, in my opinion, that it has to be factored in. But Michigan, in their game against Washington, they dominated them. They were able to win that game. Williams threw 3 interceptions. He was negative 19 yards. That's one example of a game where Michigan defended a mobile quarterback, Ohio State defended a mobile quarterback. But when you think about the matchup there, okay, Michigan will beat Washington at home, and you're gonna see where I'm going here with this in a second. Michigan played a very tough game against Purdue at home, 21-16. Was it in doubt? Really not so much. They won that game close. Ohio State, that game against Purdue, pretty much over in the first quarter. And that was a road win, right? That was a road win for the Buckeyes, 34-10 against Purdue, but they took guys out. Purdue put up 3 points in the first quarter, and then Ohio State put up 24 in that second quarter. I said it was over in the first, I meant in the second quarter, 24-3, game's over essentially at halftime. 34-10, Buckeyes win on the road, emphatic win over Purdue. All right, Michigan had a game against Wisconsin, right? That was a game against Wisconsin at home. Relatively close, early on. They had some struggles with them, and they wound up beating them 24-10. Ohio State beat Wisconsin on the road 34-0. So you look at some of these comparable matchups. Washington game, both of them did a good job. Michigan's game was at home. Wisconsin game was at home for Michigan. Purdue game was at home for Wisconsin. Buckeyes played all three of those teams on the road, and they emphatically beat all of them on the road. Whereas Michigan had struggles against Wisconsin. They were in a tie game with Washington in the third quarter. I think people forget that was a very tight game until late third quarter, the interception that leads to a touchdown for the Wolverines. And then Wisconsin, you're talking about a 10-7 score game at the half. Really a good win for them overall, but that's not exactly something to hang your hat on, saying, all right, we beat the same teams. You beat them at home and not in the same manner. So there can be the conversation about Ohio State hasn't played anybody. Okay, Texas, Michigan played Oklahoma on the road. The Buckeyes played Texas at home. But those are the three comparable matchups. I believe those are the only three common opponents that they've had this season. 3 at home for Michigan, 3 on the road for the Buckeyes, and the manner was different, very much so. I would wager in all three. Ohio State in that first half against Washington, they were down, I think 3-0, and then got the late touchdown to Jeremiah Smith, and then really opened it up and took it away. Touchdown, first possession in the second half, and then wasn't really close in the second from there. So for Michigan to be able to play a 4-quarter game, it's going to be amazing for some of you hearing it, but I think Ohio State fans will agree with this. They don't think that this should be a 4-quarter game. They're seeing this as a game that, despite what it means, despite the history between these two programs, that this game should be no different from Wisconsin on the road, no different from Washington. Yes, it could be close early, but you carry on 4 quarters of this type of talent against a team that you believe to be inferior, that you win that game over 4 quarters. Now, to the defense of Michigan in this one, stylistically, they have exactly what it takes to be able to pull off this type of upset against the number 1 team in the country. And it's a formula that is proven. It's running the clock down. It is completions. Davis Warren did not do a good enough job against that. So I'm keying into a game from 2023 I talked about earlier. But J.J. McCarthy, 16 of 20. Only 148 yards. He had that touchdown third quarter, I want to say, to Roman Wilson, or might have been in the first half. I don't know exactly. I know he threw a touchdown to Roman Wilson, but 80% completion percentage, only 148 yards. They ran it for 156. It wasn't like 6 yards a carry. It was 4 yards a carry. It was churning that wheel, completion driven, marching down the field, being fine to punt the football and trust their defense, the best defense in college football that year. And boy, did they play the perfect style. Wound up with 7 more minutes time of possession in that game, the same way they had 7 minutes time of possession against the Buckeyes. So you think about offensive coordinator Sherrone Moore executing to perfection a game plan last year against the Buckeyes. Now, my only sort of pushback on that now, I defended Michigan now. now I'm going to push back on that defense somewhat, is their offense truly only had 6 points in that game. The touchdown that they had, right, on the interception from Will Howard, the ball's taken to the 5-yard line, they punch it in, bam, 7 points on the board in the first half that they were able to put up. And that changed the game there a little bit there in that second quarter. They had a field goal. Dominic Zvada hit like a 55-yard field goal in that game. That was not a drive that was needed for them to do a whole lot. It was a Donovan Edwards run for 3 yards, a loss of 1, and then it's a complete pass for a yard, and then Zvada hit a 54-yard field goal. So Michigan started at the Buckeye 39-yard line on that possession, and they picked up 3 yards, kicked the field goal. So not exactly a whole lot of offense on that play. I would argue that they really only had one actual drive, one good drive in that game. I'll go through the drive chart right now. I actually know they had the drive that ended in a pick with the Jack Sawyer play. They did get momentum at the end of that game. Then you talk about a bit of the wear and tear. And while I'll talk about now how there's a bit of defense to even that defense, is how once the game got further in, Michigan started wearing on that Buckeye defense. A 15-play, 77-yard drive, 9 minutes, and then the Jack Sawyer interception. Buckeyes then went 3-and-out. Then Michigan, 11 plays, 5.5 minutes. They wind up kicking a field goal. The Buckeyes go 4-and-out, and the game is over. So you look at the time of possession in that fourth quarter, Ohio State had the football for 1 minute and 57 seconds and ran 7 plays. See that again. 1 minute and 57 seconds and ran 7 plays in the fourth quarter. A perfect job done by Michigan overall. But my thoughts are, in order to get to that stage of the game, it means you got to have success earlier, and that's getting stops. Is there luck involved? I don't really know. The missed field goal there in the third quarter, that certainly helped the cause. The Buckeyes down 3-7. They miss a field goal in the second quarter of that game, right? So there's 2 missed field goals that Ohio State had overall, but the continuous pounding Michigan, banging their head against the wall, banging their head against the wall, banging their head against the wall consistently, ended up eventually wearing on that Ohio State defense. As good as they were, the number 1 defense in college football. Look, we just went through it. They had 2 good drives in the fourth quarter. Outside of that, we go through the rest of the drive charts. Third quarter, 3-and-out, 4 yards. 3-and-out, 3 yards. End of half, 1 play. A field goal that we talked about, 3 plays, and then a kick. A 3-and-out before that. The ball where they had the Will Howard interception set up at the 2-yard line. A possession where they wound up turning it over on downs earlier in that game. So I guess you could, so we'll call that a possession. I forgot about that one too. It's funny how quickly you forget about some of these possessions. But 6.5 minute drive, and they wound up turning the ball over on downs that ended up setting up the Will Howard interception. So they had 3 good drives overall. Opening possession of the game, they wound up punting. The Buckeyes kicked a field goal to start off the scoring of that game. But overall, though, heck of a job from Sherrone Moore last year. Can he replicate it once again this season? I know a lot of it comes down to him, but this year, a lot of that comes down on the right shoulder, the right arm of Bryce Underwood. You talk about any of these games, you have an opportunity. It is always within your power to score every single time that you touch the football and win every game that you play. Just because if there's an opponent out there, you still control it. Your quarterback, you touch the football, you do have a shot every time. It's like, I think about the analogy for tennis. If you're a tennis player, it doesn't matter if you're playing the best Roger Federer in his prime. If you do not miss a shot, you can beat anybody. If you don't miss, you can beat them. So in this specific case, how do you take the racket out of the hand of Roger Federer? Well, it's holding serve. You got to hold your own serve and get this game to a tiebreaker and get it deep into the fourth quarter. And what's that first serve for Michigan? Well, it's the run game and easy completion. That is the true formula. It's been proven time and time again. So what does Matt Patricia have up his sleeve to defend what very predictably will be the game plan of Michigan in this game. So we've broken down a little bit of that game last year, gone through that, how Michigan most likely will be attacking the Buckeyes, how Ohio State needs to attack this Michigan defense overall. We've gone into a little bit of history. Let's think about another. There's a special game, sort of the phantom first down call. Was that 2014, 2015, I want to say? Overtime, 2 versus 3 in that matchup. Playoff spot on the line. And then I want to say the Buckeyes they wound up getting beat by Clemson when they were favored in the semifinal on a New Year's Eve, I want to say. But yeah, there's games like that. I want to say 2013 came down to a 2-point conversion at the end of that one. The Buckeyes hold, and Ohio State winds up losing the Big Ten championship game, I want to say, to Michigan State the next week, so they don't end up going into the national championship. That was the same Saturday that the Auburn-Alabama Iron Bowl returned to the house for a touchdown, and Ohio State needed Alabama to lose that game, and they did in crazy fashion, but the Buckeyes kind of didn't do enough with their opportunity, wound up losing in the Big Ten title game. There's been a ton of unbelievable matchups. This series has gone Ohio State's way for, about 15 years. They won 14 out of 15, and then the last 4 for Michigan. So what's better than this? A game where Ohio State fans emphatically think they're going to win, and then a game where they're also like, I just don't know. It's Michigan, and Ryan Day is 0-4 in the last couple. And then there's Michigan fans that are like, I just don't like the matchup this year. Bryce Underwood, there's negativity. And then there's the other side, like it's Ohio State. We're used to just beating this team, and there's a confidence level that we have. This game's at home. Ann Arbor, in our building, going to be 112 or so. That 120, I don't know how they'd get another 8,000 people in that place. It's already stacked full to the brim. 112,000 strong for this game. No doubt it'll hit 110. I can't believe that we're already at this point of the year where we get the game, this matchup. So to sort of wrap this all up and head into the end of it, the playoff picture certainly has a look to it that there is a path. There really is a truth path for the Wolverines. And what's funny to me is I really believe this team could compete with just about anybody in the playoff because of the style of running the ball and their quarterback, Bryce Underwood, at his best. I mean, the guy is simply dynamic. He's so good with his legs. The arm talent, there's no doubting that. The really biggest question mark is, again, that consistency. And in this matchup against Ohio State, the toughest thing for Michigan to do in this game is truly to make this game 4 quarters, to have it be close at the end, for this one to be tight, for this one to have meaning in the final 5 minutes like it did a season ago. Much like the other games where they blew out the Buckeyes and it wasn't close really at the end in 2021 and 2022, Ohio State's really looking to flip that script. And my prediction overall of what we're going here is I think that Ohio State wins this game. There's an emphatic feel about this team that they're not a team of destiny. They're just a team of destruction. That anything that's in their path, they see it, they respect it, and they just beat it. And they've got a stone-cold California killer at quarterback. Julian Sayin has been unreal this year. The core he's working with, I know there was talk about the health of Smith and of Carnell Tate. These guys are full of go for this game. And I really believe that they open it up as an offense, but they are going to be able to wind up out-rushing Michigan. It's pretty clear to me that Ohio State's front is arguably better. I know Sawyer, Tuimoloau, Williams, and Hamilton were really good, but I'm not so sure that they're better than Curry, than Kenyatta Jackson, Houston, and Caden McDonald. This group of guys is so talented in the foundation that's behind it. Now, where the Buckeyes can struggle is at corner. Andrew Marsh. This guy's been very good throughout the entire season. He'll have 50-50 ball opportunities one-on-one Andrew Marsh, look, he'll take those. Davis and Igbinosun, you could without a doubt see pass interference calls. He's been a guy that last year he was really heavily criticized and was the most penalized player in the country. This year hasn't really been as much of a thing. He hasn't had the penalties, but in a game like this where it can be called a little bit tighter, hopefully it's not, and they let these boys play and have a heck of a competitive game overall. I see it being Davis and Igbinosun who they'll probably pick on, because Jermaine Matthews, that's a bad guy right there. He's done a great job. Not that Igbinosun's not a bad guy. He's the one that they'll probably go after and try and attack. A player that has to have a huge day for Michigan as a defense, well, that's Derrick Moore. Derrick Moore needs to be a major factor in this game, getting after the quarterback. Jaishawn Barham, the move to him coming from the interior of the D-line to edge, that's a massive decision for them. I'm questioning whether they can get to Julian Sayin and they can impact this game enough, or Sayin can just get the football out of his hand. Remember, Brandon Inniss, Max Klare, these are guys that are opened up because of the production of your outside wide receivers. And Max Klare underneath, and then Bo Jackson out in the flat. Sayin's done such a heck of a job getting the football out to them. For Michigan, defending that offense, I really struggle to see how consistently they do it enough. Now, if they follow the formula of the last couple of years and limiting the possessions, similarly enough, it's sort of the way that the Buckeyes play offense, where they this year are all based on efficiency, limiting the amount of times that their defense will be out in the field, so they're fresher. They played about a game less than anyone else in college football because of the amount of less snaps that they've had to face. So Michigan's got to honestly take a page out of their own book, as well as a page out of the Buckeyes 2025 regular season, where it's chugging clock and daring Ohio State to chug clock themselves by running the football. So it's almost like Ohio State plays somewhat of this game into Michigan's hands. So I really question, do the Buckeyes speed this up and say, all right, we're prepared for a game like this against Michigan or Indiana because we up the tempo. It's about how many possessions do we get overall. We're going to trust our defense now. They're just that good that we can put them in positions where they got to be out on the field 10 or 11 times in this game. That's really the question that you're going to be asking Matt Patricia, Brian Hartline, Ryan Day. What type of style do they play? Are they mixing it up? Most likely that's what's going to come, is a mix-up of tempo. It's hard to imagine that they go fast from the get-go and they carry that over the entire day. But in order for Michigan to keep this game close, I frankly think close would be a 10 or a 13-point game in the fourth quarter where there's still meaningful possessions. That's close to me for this one. I think that Ohio State is going to win this game, and in emphatic fashion. Not a blowout, not a crazy huge win. 24-13 is what comes to mind with me. I got a lot of respect for that Michigan defense. Also, 13 points against this Ohio State squad is actually a lot. They're only giving up about 8 points a game. If they had their starters in for the whole game, each of these games, you're probably actually looking at only about 5.5 points a game they'd have given up if they had their starters in for these entire games and played them through the full entirety. So you truly are looking at the best defense in the country, one of those Michigan 2023 defenses, better than what they were a season ago just because of the talent that they possess. So overall, that prediction, I'm curious what you have to say overall. And I went heavy on the Ohio State throughout this video and talking about where their players and where they have advantages, because truly that's what it comes down to, whether or not they fully take advantage. Michigan can win this game because of Ohio State beating themselves. If this one goes played up straight up the way that these two teams play, it actually probably is a wider margin than 24-13. Ohio State likely wins it 31-10. If it's just the way that they've played the entire season, Michigan riding that roller coaster up and down, Underwood, a good throw here, and then a bad throw over here. Whereas Ohio State's just been a consistent, steady, slow burn, and then they have a explosion. They might only be up 10-3 entering the middle 8, but then bam, they're up 24-3 on you with 11 minutes to go in the third quarter. You're like, wasn't this just a 7-point game? Well, yeah, now you're down 24-3 to start the second half. That middle 8 is very important. So if you're looking at a Michigan team with the football around 8 minutes in the second quarter, that's the time to hunker down and slow it down. Go for 2 for 1 with the possessions. Try and get through that. A game where you just control the pace of play. Cannot let this one get out of hand, which it absolutely can, playing it into the Buckeyes' hands. So unbelievable that we get this game to have this type of implications on it. This Ohio State team is looking to go 16-0 to be the only team in college football history to have a 16-0 season, but they haven't completed any of their goals. Their goals every year with Ryan Day: win the Big Ten, beat Michigan, and win the national championship. And frankly, it starts here. I think they probably have a better chance of doing all of that and achieving those goals with a win in this game. Essentially, a win against them is stamping their ticket to the quarterfinals of the college football playoff. If they play Indiana and are 12-0, and Indiana's 12-0, both of those teams will get a first-round bye. Unless somebody wins by 20, that looks like it can be a pretty good matchup. I don't think anyone wins that game by over 20 points. So realistically, both of those teams get first-round byes. So you're playing, this game is worth almost 2 right now, or this is basically like an elimination game where you eliminate your rival from a chance to make the playoff and end their season, but also it's sort of like the first round of the college football playoff where you get a win in this game and you can essentially stamp your ticket to Indianapolis and to the quarterfinals of the first round bye, most likely incoming with a win in this game. You're going to have Indiana 2, Ohio State number 1 if the Buckeyes were to win. But overall, I mean, we talked about Michigan and their opportunities to go out there and get this game. It's going to be coming down to a fast start and for Andrew Marsh to make a play here or there, for the run game with Kudzal to take off, for Bryce Underwood to break a tackle and get away from Arvell Reese, to make him miss. Those are the types of things that it comes down to. Things that look like they aren't quite even, but then the tides start to shift if there are plays. If Ohio State is committing penalties, which is, there's a whole bunch of things. Third down, red zone, all of that is important in this game. But overall, it just comes down to the rush yards. Can Michigan be consistent enough to keep themselves out of 3rd and long in this game? Because if it's 3rd and 2, can run the football twice, right? And then it's stopping, of course, that passing attack. So that's my prediction for this game. 24-13. Ohio State gets a 2-score win in their first win against this Wolverine team in it's like 2,000 days, something crazy like that. So I appreciate you so much for watching this Blitz with Blender video. Let me know down below in the comments your score predictions, who you believe wins this game. The game of the year, it's here. This is the game of the year. Cannot believe that we get it for this type of implication with Michigan playing this good with a true freshman and Bryce Underwood at quarterback. Unbelievable how good he's been this year against a guy could wind up being the Heisman Trophy winner this year if he is able to keep playing at this level. I want to hear from you guys. Appreciate you so much for watching this Blitz with Blender video. I'm Josh Blender. I make college and NFL content every day, getting you set and ready for these amazing matchups. This is as good as it gets. Please enjoy this one. Enjoy your Thanksgiving day, your Thanksgiving weekend, and of course, what is going to be a great football game. Appreciate you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Best player in college football. That Georgia and Ohio State game, New Year's Eve, is going to be a classic.
Josh Blender, hi everybody. I'm Josh Blender. To the